Hi, it's Christy of So to Speak, and welcome to the So to Speak Closet series. So, if you are new to the Closet series, then very briefly, the Closet series is all about me inviting guests virtually into the linen closet here. And yes, this is an actual linen closet. Okay, no green screen. And where was I? Yeah, I invite people in here. And here's what happens. We have conversations, and ideally you feel like a fly on the wall. And it's very down to earth, very real. It highlights the guests who are on. They're all small business owners in our community. So it highlights their businesses and gets you to know their business and them a little bit more. And then for you, the viewer, it offers you the chance of receiving something. So whether it's knowledge or insight or support or relief or humor or just normalizing yourself, like, oh wow, I really admire that person and they feel that way too, and wow, okay, cool, I'm not crazy or anything else. So if anything, you just get that you're sane, or you're crazy just like us. You know what I mean? Flip perspective. A little one flew over the cuckoo's nest there, right? Who's crazy here? That's for a different episode. Anyway, for right now, before we get into my next guest, I have a little bit of a confession. Um, okay, so it's a pretty big confession. And here's the deal. I got super judgy at the beginning of COVID. Okay. And I judged you. If you said you were bored, I judged you hard. And I'm sorry, because you know what? In COVID time, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, seems like a friggin' year and a half. And the joke's on me, because what happened was I judged you about being bored. So I loaded my plate with a ton of stuff to do and felt all self-righteous and like, oh, I'm going to COVID the hell out of COVID, which ended me in a puddle of tears. And I won't say nervous breakdown, but absolutely like a frantic panic attack of what the hell am I doing? Why is this all on my plate? Oh, it's there because you chose to put it there. So, joke's on me. And I'm sorry. If you're bored, be bored. I have embraced the boredom and realized that it is really about my own issues with boredom, which I have spoke with a professional about, for real. And not about you being bored at all, actually. So thank you, I guess, for saying that you were bored, because then I got to figure out my own stuff about that. And I also realized that we're modeling it for our kids. Like if you have kids and you're bored, you're showing them that you can be bored. And sometimes the best ideas come out of being bored. So that's it. And can I say bored any more times? If you're drinking right now, you can make that into a drinking game. And if you're drinking in the middle of the day, just watch it. But anyway, okay. So for our next guest, Kelli Watson, powerhouse of a lady, she is. And if you've been in her presence, you can feel her fabulous energy from all the way across the room. And I'm very lucky to call her a friend. And she is also called a mom and a wife and a woman, and the co-founder, co-owner of Scriptor Publishing Group, as well as Studio 8 Academy, where she offers incredible online classes that have to do with her coaching business and personal development. So you definitely want to check that out after our conversation. So Kelli and I jump right in talking about how we can feel all the feels that come up during COVID, how no feelings are bad or good. They are what they are, and how we can remain open-hearted through it all. So please enjoy our conversation.
That everybody actually has the ability to control something and to lead something, even if it's just leading themselves through it. And when you say that, then it's giving people the permission and maybe the confidence to say, all right, I don't have to just sit back and let this happen to me. I can actually take control of the reins and make it happen for me.
Yeah, and the permission, and also when you said that, it made me think like, yes, somewhat permission, but also the belief in them. Like, what better feeling is it to know, like, yes, we all would love to believe in ourselves to an umph degree, and many of us do, and it depends on the day, especially now. But knowing that someone else believes in you is just such a warmth. It's just a feeling of like, okay, so there is there is someone receiving, you know, it's like the giving from a place of not being self-serving, which I feel, to be completely honest, I'm learning at early middle age, I'll call it, but like I'm learning now, you know. I mean, I always thought like, oh, I'm giving and I'm giving, and I didn't realize until recently that there is a strong, distinct difference between giving from a self-serving place and giving from, I don't want to say selfless, because I'm not a fan of that phrase, but from a place that is like your cup's already runneth over and it flows to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Which is only a one way. And that's the piece that you're missing. And I'm laughing because the book that you have up behind you that you put up there is Give and Take. So when you're only coming from a place of giving, I mean, it's a beautiful space, but until you learn how to take and to receive, you're not really fully giving from the heart. The entire world is built on polarization, right? There's always two ends to the spectrum. And so there is a give and there is a take. And until you learn how to receive, you cannot fully wholeheartedly give. So that's, you know, just sort of an element, maybe a little deeper position on what you're saying there.
Absolutely. And so I'm hearing also like that idea of accepting help and not having to do it all, and realizing that we are all at our own levels of capacity, you know, like we all, everybody, and of course, yes, I believe we're all in this together. We hear that over and over again, and at the same time, to the degree is very different. And so when we talk about, like when you and I were first talking about us having this conversation, you had talked about having an open heart and the importance of that. And how are you doing that? Like right now, how are you maintaining, and how are you aware when the shift happens, which happens in all of us when it starts closing, and how do you get it back to stay open?
From a personal perspective, I think I just exist from the open space. You know, this energy is open the vast majority of the time. And I think my response to this was immediately opening upward to, you know, outward, what can I do and how can I help? And, you know, where is the need? I was really thinking about it in what I had written when I had gotten your form about being on this with you. I had just heard Elizabeth Gilbert online, who I love. I know you love as well. And she often, I love her writing, but I love her writing because she's very real and very down to earth. And so she often speaks the same way. And she was just doing an Instagram something, speaking from her heart one day. And she was telling a story of Rhea, who was she calls her person, and this speech that Rhea had done at Rikers Island for a group of inmates. And there's a lot more to the story, so you can look it up. But the essence of the message that she was giving was that here are these women who are locked up, who are confined, who are unable to leave, very similar to what many of us are feeling right now. And what she said to them is that you have to remember that this is who you are, and this is where you live. And it doesn't matter if you're in the closet or like you are, or you're in your house, or you're in Rikers Island, you know, confined away. Your heart is who you are. And so realizing that that goes with you no matter where you are and what you're doing. Here in this moment in time, we're at the perfect opportunity to really look at that, right? Who is this? What is in my heart? How can I share what's in there? Or how can I process what's in there, right? So recognizing that your home is right here, no matter what the four walls are that are around you, here. And then this is where you live, right? So thinking about those two things, and in response to your question, that really resonated with me, thinking that this is a really beautiful time to just realign yourself, to just spend some time improving yourself. So for me, that meant setting up a really good, I have a good best practices. I tightened it down and I actually shifted it just a little bit because taking care of me became really important. Knowing that if I'm okay, then I can handle whatever's coming. I can handle the kids, the family, everything that's coming at us if I'm okay, right? So then now for the long-winded answer to your question,
I love
that just means
long-winded.
for me, I actually am getting up a little later than normal. I'm sleeping a little bit longer, just making sure I'm getting my rest. That's probably number one for me. If I'm not sleeping well, then nothing's going to go well no matter what. It's taking time in the morning to read. I read every morning something that gets me here, but also gets me here. So it might be something spiritual. It might be something educational. It might be, but some kind of reading every day in the morning when I'm first really open.
So it's the first thing that you consume.
First thing that I consume, so that I'm filling myself first. And then writing, which again is getting here into the soul, mindfulness writing, and my journal is called Mindfulness. And for me, that's really more of a work of my soul, but it is also a mental component to that writing as well. So keeping these two moving, functioning. I remember Teresa Huggins once said to me, remember, there's a big figure 8 between your heart and your head. So just, keep moving between them, keep the energy flowing between them. So all of that before I even do anything. I used to work out first thing in the morning. I've actually moved that back into the day. I've moved that a little bit later. So the exercise is also really important to me, and that's a best practice. But what's happened is because all my kids are home, they're all working out. So there have been moments and elements of each day where I can work out with each of them. And they don't
that's awesome.
So I've been doing that so that I get my physical, but I also get them the connection time with them. So
I love that.
Shifting a little bit of the timing of it, but really dialing into my best practices.
And so much of what you said, what I kept hearing is the checking in for what works for you. Like so many times you hear work out first thing in the morning, or you won't do it. And like, yes, for some people that is very true. And at the same time, some people love work. I've started working out at night and I'm so an early bird. Like I'm not a night owl at all, but if I'm not working, I'm with my kids. And so I could work out first thing in the morning like I used to do, but I cherish the quiet time if I wake up before that. So things are shifting, and the movement and the connection, the figure 8 connection, like how important for us to, more than anything out of everything that you said, it was the checking in with yourself first. We're consuming so much, and it's so important that we're choosing consciously what we are consuming. So first thing in the morning, you're not checking the newsfeed. Like it sounds like we say that all the time. It's so easy to fall into that habit. It's those mini spaces of like catching yourself and being like, nope. I mean, I've had moments where I've literally thrown my hands up, like no, push the phone away, because I have like completely we're all on the screens. I've had to reestablish my social media boundaries. I have been scrolling like zombie, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, stop, but just the checking in with yourself and realizing that what works for someone else may not work for you. And there's nothing happening here that it should be like, oh, I wish I could, be that Pinterest mom who has a schedule for their kids and has all the color coded, like whatever works for you. Check the space around you. When did you tell me? No, it was in one of the texts that you send in the morning. What's the name of those?
My Monday morning messages. Yes.
The Monday morning messages, the text you sent. I just listened to the Heaven and Hell one, which we can circle back to in a second. Absolutely loved the parable that you shared. Like so simple, so clear. Love the visual. But the one that you shared of Cody sensing energy. When you and Graham, so Cody's Kelly's dog, right? So just sensing that energy, like wanting to be around. So Graham and Kelly hugging in the morning, Cody gets nuzzled all in because Cody's sensing that energy. And how incredible to instead of trying to be the Pinterest mom or trying to be like anything, which, you know, whether it's a partner or the best worker or whatever it is, to be able to check in to see like how you're feeling and where things, because that's what's going out to everybody.
That's right.
You know?
And you're exactly right. And what it really comes down to and what you're describing is managing energy. And that
Yeah.
and it goes exactly back to that give and take, because the energy that you consume, what you take in, that's where I start my day. I consume inward, right? My choice of what I consume. Because I know what I consume is then what I will be giving outward. So the energy that comes in is the energy that goes out. Your choice of what that is. So, you know, just looking at the sensing of the energy, maybe because there's a little more quiet right now, people have an opportunity to sense that a little more.
I don't know if everybody would look at that as an opportunity. However, you would hope, right? Like there's the feeling too. I mean, everybody has their own levels of tolerance that are being tested right now, and patience. And, you know, there are times where I sense my energy and it is like a pinball, not a ping pong ball, but also like pinball machine. It's like, I have to do this and I have to do that. And for me, what centers it is, it's so boring, but it's having a list of just absolute priorities, and not just a to-do list with things to do like the laundry or whatever, but like if I get these two, and it's very short, my list is like quality over quantity. If I get these two things done today, job well done, like done. You know, my bar is, I guess, low, but at the same time for me it's very set, because sensing my energy, when I start getting frantic, there are moments where I have to like just say to my kids, and they're little ones, I have to be like, I'm going to the bathroom for a second. I don't want to be interrupted. I just close the door and I just sit in there and just breathe for a second, because or else I'm going to lose it, you know, and which is par for the course of being human. But it's also, the more that you can be aware of, even if that is that moment, you just being aware of that is taking more control over, what do I want to be sending out that I'm not.
Yes. And people are fully in control of that. Back to that, you know, leader of one, leader of many. If you can't lead one, you can't lead any. So leading yourself first, paying attention to your energy, doing what you need to do. You know, what you're describing there, going into the bathroom, just even the pinballing of energy and just your busy mind and what tasks can get done, reminds me of when the kids were born, right? When you first have babies and you're home, and if you get a shower in the day, that is success, you know, check mark, like you did something. And that's because it's a complete rocking of the boat when you're bringing this new baby home and you're, you know, adjusting to what they need and schedules and time shifts and not sleeping and all those things. It's the same thing now. It's the same kind of trauma that we're experiencing, that makes you go back and say, okay, if I could just slow down and just be happy with one or two things, that's enough. That's enough.
Exactly. Like, it's so quality over quantity, you know? I mean, it's this, and it really is, you know, yes, you want to make informed decisions, and absolutely. But Seth Godin had put something on one of his blog posts within it, and I don't remember what the full context was, but what I took away from it was 5 minutes of news, everything else is a scam. Like, just all you need is 5 minutes. You do not need the headline coming through. You don't need the pings and the notifications. You choose when you consume the news. You choose what news, and you choose if you're going to be in an echo chamber, for sure, but you choose what type of echo chamber you're going to be in. Like, you know, one of the things that made me think of our conversation was, you know how you're seeing all of those, there's probably a fancy name for it, but like all of the visuals of like, one person gets COVID and this many people are infected. 3 people get it and this many people are infected. And what came to me specifically regarding you and your energies, like, what if we shifted that to something we wanted to receive? You know what I mean? Like, going back to the energy that we're talking about, like, one person feels joyful or inspired or peaceful, and then they come into contact with 10 people online, on Zoom, on FaceTime, whatever it is. And then those people are infected. It's that emotional contagion.
That's right.
you know?
That's exactly right. And I mean, even just that you're doing these conversations, right? Who knows who they touch and where that spreads and the
Yeah.
ripple effect of that. And that's just a reframing. What you're talking about is just reframing what the news is feeding you, that consuming what the news gives you is going to then make the output a mirror image of what that input is. So if you're inputting opportunity, or you're inputting like a good positive ripple effect and good energy going outward, if that's what you're putting in, that's what's going to come out. So it's a reframing.
Absolutely. And so if someone was watching this and they were like, you know, this is totally new to me. I have not paused ever to be able to have an opportunity. And there could be like a very alarming, I think of like not Tetris, Jenga. It could be alarming, like when you pull one piece and everything tumbles. So how would you suggest like people deal with that inevitable attention that may be involuntary, that starts being paid to like what's happening?
Well, that's when you get up in your mind. That's
Yeah.
up here, right?
Yeah.
That's when you really get, it's the what ifs that you start spinning that make you feel like that Jenga piece. You know, you're what if that, and what if that, and oh no, what, and you know, so that's mental work. So you know you're too much up here, drop down into here, drop down into your heart, drop down into your body. You can actually I'm thinking if somebody's really new to this idea and they don't really know how to do that, breathing is the easiest. Breathe. Focus on your breathing. It's that meditative breathing. The reason being, one, because really opening up your breath is so good on many levels, stimulating physiological things, but also because it just changes your focus from here to here.
Yes.
That's the shift. That's it. It's that somatic dropping into your body.
Totally. Absolutely. And it's making me, when you were saying that, I immediately thought of, there was an acting exercise that I got from an instructor, which people use all the time because it's all body awareness. It's just that embodied self-awareness, right?
That's it.
So it's 5 senses. You take your 5 senses. People do it differently. People do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, however, but you write down your senses and you name 5 things that you immediately hear. You name 4 things that you immediately see. You name 3 things that you immediately smell, 2 things that you're tasting, 1 thing that you're physically feeling. So not emotionally, but like I feel my heart in my body, or I feel the warm blanket on me, or whatever it is. And that's so powerful to just, it's like a major release because you're fully getting back in your body, and it's something you don't have to learn. You know what I mean? Like so many times we don't realize that we're breathing. We don't pay attention to it. We don't know we're holding our breath. So starting to pay attention to your breathing, like what a simple way, paying attention. I like giving people options to it because for some people, one doesn't work and they're kind of like, all right, now what? So like the 5 senses is another one.
Yeah, it's a really easy one. And I'll actually say that's one that I recommend that you can do with your kids. Because your kids are also then obviously feeding off your energy. Like Cody senses us when we're hugging. You know, your kids are the same, right? So if you're giving off that nervous, anxious energy, then your kids are receiving nervous and anxious. So that right there is a really good tool. They don't even have to write. You can just quickly say to them, you know, what are 3 things you see? What are 3 things you hear? What are 3 things you smell, taste, touch? And usually there's some giggling that starts to happen because when you say, what do you smell? Well, that's kind of funny. What do you hear? You know, so what are you tasting? That's a little funny. That laughter also can diminish some of that barrier of anxiety. So that's a great one you can do yourself, but also for kids.
Absolutely. And it's like just being able to get that laughter, like what a release it is to be. I mean, I've been consuming so much Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Ellen. Like, I mean, I go on I'm not even binging. Like everybody's talking about Netflix and Hulu, and I almost am exclusively on YouTube. Like just watching Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Ellen. Like I just need that real, honest, loving humor. Like they're all 3 of them are just so funny and loving without being jerks to other people.
Absolutely.
You
And
know
it's
what I
kind of,
mean?
it's so fascinating to watch what they're doing because they're having to create, this as an actress, they have to create the energy. We're back to energy again. Because they're talking to a 2D screen now, there's
Yes.
no feedback.
Yeah.
And for so many people, especially comedians, that feedback, or an actor, that feedback is so powerful. And so to watch them learning this new modality and learning how to work in this 2D screen,
Yes.
is fascinating too. I think watching them is fun. I mean, they're lighthearted and all of that. But I think it also is that great leveler, to realize that where we usually see them shining and perfect on the screen, on their stage, in their show, they're not right now. They're just real. Their kids are climbing over the couch and they have these awkward pauses, and the microphone didn't work, and it was supposed to pan to somebody and it didn't. Like, it's not perfect, and it's still great.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great leveler, maybe to make people realize, like, we are all human.
We're all human. And like, what comfort too, what comfort in knowing that we're all human, and through a familiar face that is still there for you. So it has that consistency within these times that are so inconsistent. And then on top of that consistency, they're fully showing up.
Yeah. Have you seen John Krasinski's
Oh my God.
Some Good News Network, SGN?
I just was telling my sister, like, if I could reincarnate Paul Newman and take John Krasinski and mash them together, that would be like my ideal guy.
Perfect. I get it.
You know what I
totally
mean?
get it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's his facial expressions. I mean, but it's great. And I love that his daughter drew the sign, and there's
awesome.
beautiful. Really, again, right there you go, right to a heart, right? It's not about perfect. It's not about getting 50 million things accomplished. It's that much more simple type of output. So yeah, some great stuff happening.
So many people are saying, oh, this is the perfect time to do your Corona projects, or to start something, like whether it's a language or whether it's an instrument or a class that you wanted to take. And if that's resonating with you, perfect. And at the same time, if it's resonating with you to be of service and just, what am I really good at, and to just completely pump that out, awesome. It doesn't have to be either or, but I feel like it really is important for us to check in to make sure that we're listening to ourselves about what it is and what's the best way we can be of service.
Yes, and I'll actually kind of frame that a little bit, though, because I don't want somebody out there going, what's wrong with me because I don't have those curiosities, or it's so. Let me start with this. Boredom is an emotion that we feel. It is what I call the lower energy. So it tends, there are lower energies and higher energies. I guess we're going with energies today. Obviously, who knew? There's lower energies like sadness, boredom, frustration, depression. I call them lower energies. They're slower vibrational energies, right? They tend to suck energy. They pull energy in. They're like the black hole. I say that they're on the bottom because gravity kind of brings you
on
there.
The continuum.
So boredom is in that package. It's in those lower energies. And it's not an abnormal emotion. It's a normal emotion, depending on where you are, to your point. So I will also bring in Maslow's hierarchy here. And I also want to bring in the 5 stages of grief, because I think there's a lot more to realize in the spectrum. First of all, when the world tilted off its axis, it's like Maslow's hierarchy. I don't know if you ever studied that back in psychology, but the very first things is security. It's food and shelter, and then safety. If people don't have those basic needs, they're never going to be reaching for whatever that curiosity is. They cannot, because they have to take care of these things first. Those are human needs, and we have to address those first. So it's possible that somebody that's listening, or somebody out there, has not secured their own physiological health and safety yet. And if they haven't, then they're probably still in those lower energies. They're probably scared, depressed, down, possibly bored. But it's because they don't have, they're not at a level where they can put out more energy than that yet. It also ties in with the 5 stages of grief. So if you go back to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and you think of the 5 stages of grief, David Kessler, who was the one that I got that parable from, has written a new book now, the 6th stage of grief. But he was talking in that podcast I had listened to, and he was saying, you know, don't think of stages of grief as being steps. They're like this.
Ebb and flow.
Now we are in this collective grief. We are all in some part of that grief process, right? And part of that grief process is that lower energy. So we might express it as saying boredom, but it really is depression. Or we might say it's sadness, and it could also be grief. So if you're in there, you can't bypass that. You have to go through it. You have to feel it to heal it. And so I don't want anybody listening to get the idea that, okay, you shouldn't be bored because there's so much to do. Although there is so much to do, you may not be at a space where you can get there yet. And that's perfectly fine. Allow yourself, give yourself some grace, tune into what's right for you, listen to your heart, and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Go through it. At some point, there is acceptance and there is safety and security. And then you go to the next level, which is higher energy, which is more connection, more curiosity, more creation, you know, lots of other energies that are higher energies require a little more motion and momentum. So that's a lot to say, but I think to your point that some people may be saying boredom, but they may be actually experiencing a lot of other stuff.
Underneath.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, what you're saying too made me think of the fact that boredom is, we don't allow ourselves to be bored. So often we do, you know, rush to be doing and getting things done and checking things off. And so if we're a lot of times we associate that with laziness, you know, like things I've read, it's like, oh, if I'm not doing something, I'm feeling lazy, or I'm not feeling accomplished, or I'm feeling like I'm not contributing. And boredom often can be misconstrued. So it can be considered boredom when a lot of times that's what you need to like get the ideas full. Like you need to slow it down so that you can kind of get ideas going, or you can just check in, or whatever you need. So that feeling of being bored serves you in its own way.
It does. And maybe the practice is accepting instead of resisting. So I'm feeling bored. I got to do something. You're resisting it. And maybe the practice is in accepting it. I'm feeling a little bit lazy right now. I'm feeling a little bit bored. Let me just sit with it. What does that mean? How does that feel? What do I think? What do I feel? What do I think? What do I feel? Touch back, get back to that touching in with yourself. And that's not easy. How do you accept something that you have been conditioned your whole life to not do, right? It takes practice. Now there's an opportunity to practice some of that, to just accept what is and not resist it.
Yeah, and the practicing it is, again, going to depend on the person and where they are energetically. Like, for sure, I was with you in regards to the continuum, right? So the higher you go up, it's the consciousness level too. And we all have all of the continuum within us. It's just a matter of, again, where can you become conscious enough that you're paying attention to where you are?
That's it.
Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it does serve you to be bored. Sometimes it does serve you to be like, all cylinders are not a go. I'm going to lay on the couch for however long. You know what I mean? For some people, there is a benefit to veg out and binge watch Netflix until their brain's about to whatever. And other people, it gives them major creativity. It's a way of refueling. So it's that paying attention with what energy are you accessing consciously versus by default.
Right. And being okay with it wherever you are. just recognize it, see it. You know, I'm brought back to the untethered soul, Michael Singer. And you know, that sense of standing back, the
Observing.
you that is you is actually observing all of this, right? So be the observer instead of the interactor. Don't get into the ego, just get into the spiritual piece of practicing, just observing it. It will pass. Everything is temporary. So whatever that moment is that you're not feeling productive will pass. Then you'll be productive and that will pass. So, you know, learning to just observe it, be okay. Let it be okay, because you know that it's temporary and it will move to something else as well.
I did want to check in with you about, so Kira's a senior, right?
Yes. Senior in high school.
Yeah, senior in high school. So how is she dealing with, I'm wondering, like, people who are all at like their peak moment of some big culmination or some big event, and how things got altered because of everything going on. What's her?
So many of those on so many levels. Graham and I have 5 kids. 4 of them were graduating between May and June this year. Yeah, we had 4 of them graduating.
Oh, that's cool.
So 3 graduating from college and 1 graduating from high school.
Wow.
So they are all graduating, but probably not in the same way they expected to graduate. How each of them had their moment of extreme disappointment. You know, that was something that I think collectively the world experienced very quickly. It's part of that grief is the disappointment of all the losses, of the expectations that suddenly had to change. So they are all through that at the moment, looking at what's next. You know, Kira in particular is making her decision on where she's going to be next year. That has shifted a little bit as well. She had some other goals that may or may not be able to happen now. One being she wanted to do a gap year and do a service project abroad, and you know, now that probably isn't going to be able to happen. So she's worked through the disappointment to the point where she's now looking forward. And I would say all of them the same way. Graham's daughter, Caitlin, was graduating from St. Andrews in Scotland. And so everybody was going to Scotland to visit. So all those plans had to get changed. She's home and safe and fine now. But, you know, losing that for her was huge. She was over there for 4 years, and now, you know, who knows when. We have family there, but when will she be back? You know, who knows? It's not like it's down the road, you know. Cameron's graduating from MV, Marcus is graduating from St. Lawrence. So they all had their disappointments, and that's no different than anybody. Everyone who's listening is going, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, because we had plans and things that changed as well. I think it's just a process. Go through the disappointment. You feel it. Let yourself feel it, cry, move the energy. It is sad. It is hard. That's okay.
And don't compare.
And then it isn't as hard, and it isn't as sad.
Yes, like allowing yourself to have that grieving process and being able to have it be in perspective to the macro of everything that's going on, but also to allow yourself to fully grieve. Like, yes, there are other things that are huge happening in the world right now in regards to grief, but it doesn't negate the fact that you were having a wedding, or you were having a graduation, or you had a huge trip planned, and yes, those may seem trivial to some people, but when we all know when we're in it, we're so looking forward to it, and we have all these ideas about it, and when that gets unexpectedly shifted, there's major grief with that.
That's right. David Kessler said it again in that Brene Brown podcast. I can't think of the name. What's it? I can't think of what her podcast is, but look it up.
I'll link it below. I'll link it below.
Great job. But anyway, he said, you know, he lost his son at 21 years old, and you know, has experienced some grief as well as being an expert on grief. And she said to him to describe his grief in comparison to something else, and he said there is no comparison of grief. What you have lost is important, as is mine, and you cannot compare, because the worst grief is yours. The worst grief is yours. So whatever it is you have lost is worthy of grieving.
Mm-hmm.
It's yours. So feel it, heal it, and then get to whatever the next is. Fold it into who you are in whatever way that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a comparison or a some kind of challenge that you have to win. Like, oh, mine's worse than yours. No, yours. What you're going through is the worst, and mine is the worst. So just be with it. Again, don't resist it.
I love, so when you were saying that, what I was hearing from you was it's a way for us to be connected through something that's so individual. Like how cool, like it humanizes us all, while at the same time, there's so much like respect and trust and love and all of that that's being exchanged without, it's all energy. That's being exchanged without really verbalizing.
Give and take, right back to the beginning.
Yeah,
There you go. Yeah,
exactly. Kelly, thank you so much for your time. This was, as always, just so enlightening and lovely and lighthearted. So if you have anything else that you would like to share with anybody,
what I want to share is how beautiful your closet is. And I love that you have the beautiful photos and like just this sweet little setup. And I remember, is it the Japanese woman that wrote about the
yeah,
what is it called?
I can't remember. I think we both need another cup of coffee. There,
we do. I can't remember anything. The magic of untidy,
yes,
tidy.
Yes.
She talks about how important it is to make your closet a space that is something that when you open the door to it, it makes you lift up. That uplifting joy and energy. And that's what I feel in your closet. Just having an opportunity to virtually visit it, I'm like, I hope it gives you that same.
It does. And it also has like there's a window in here that just floods light into. So I definitely knew when I moved into this home, which was relatively new, that this was going to be more than a linen closet. Like I just kept opening the realtor. She thought I was crazy because I was like, what is this room? And I opened the door and I was like, what? And I just kept closing and opening the door to look inside. Because I was like, this is so amazing. There's so many possibilities is the way I looked at it. So
there's so many possibilities. There's so many possibilities. When you get to the space where you can start searching for them and you open your mind to what's possible and the imagination and creativity starts to flow, then we are all going to be in an elevated space because of this moment in time. And I wish that for everyone. I wish that for every person that's listening in, and for those of you that share this even beyond that, is that you just realize that anything is possible.